Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my lecture on W3C XML schemas for publishing. Uh, so, um, in the last of the lectures, we went through W3C XML schemas for data interchange. And really, most of the principles that we use in creating a schema for a data interchange document still apply when we're doing it for a publishing-oriented document. Um, the difference is that publishing-oriented documents have a special kind of running narrative text uh, that has little passages enclosed in sub-elements. And this construct is known as mixed content. So the whole difference between these two kinds of documents is going to be the presence of mixed content in publishing-oriented XML documents. And I'm going to show you how to create uh, the uh, the entries in the schema to define mixed content passages, and that's really going to be the primary difference. Okay, so uh, really, primarily one new skill. Okay, well, let's take a look. So here is our document, and what I decided to do was create a document here that is a kind of technical documentation. Okay, it's a procedure for maintaining a piece of equipment that I used to own a while ago. It's a computer controlled router, and it's a procedure for lubricating it on a regular basis. So this would be the kind of technical writing that you would have in a lot of organizations. And I've created a custom schema for it. Um, Typically, if you wanted to use the standard schema for this, you'd probably use DocBook. Okay, but here, this is we're exploring how to create your own schema and tag set. So we have defined our own. So what we have here is we've got example 5.8, which is the XML document. And the root element is procedure. And then we've got a couple of metadata kinds of elements, title, author, department, revision date. And then we have an abstract. Okay. And right now the abstract just has a bunch of running text in it. And I want to call your attention to the fact that the source code here for the XML divides the content that's in abstract into paragraphs. You can easily see that there's more than one paragraph. But the fact is that we're going to discover that without further markup, we can't just depend on the white space to define the paragraphs. So we're trying to create paragraphs, but we haven't really succeeded yet. So, and then if we go down to the second slide here, we just have the end of an abstract. So this isn't the whole procedure. We're building it as we go. All right. Well, so let's take a look at the schema for this. Okay. And the namespace and all that kind of stuff. Just to back up here to slide 209. The namespace for the XML instance document is XML schema instance. Okay. And we're using the attribute XSI no namespace schema location to point to the schema file. This is just like we did in when we were using XML schema for data interchange. Okay, so same approach here. And then when we go to the schema, same approach. Here, the namespace is the namespace associated with XML schemas instead of XML schema instances. Okay, so this is a pretty simple document. We have declared at the very top level within the schema, we have a global declaration of the element procedure, okay, and it is a sequence. So sequences are complex types, okay, and it's a sequence of the title, the author, the department, the revision date, and the abstract. And we've declared the type for each of these right on the element itself. And most of them are one of the built-in types that we recognize, XS string. Okay, so it says it can have plain old XML character content. And then we have XS date here, and this is going to be a date in the ISO format. So year, 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 hyphen, month, month, hyphen, day, day. Okay? So let's just take a look at these two documents in the Oxygen XML editor. And I want to show you that the XML document is well-formed. Okay, so it says it's well-formed. And I'm going to go to the schema document, and we'll see that that's valid. Okay, and then let's go back to the XML document and actually validate that. So we're going to validate this, and that's valid too. So we haven't done anything new or challenging. But we haven't really accomplished all that we're going to want to in terms of this schema that's going to be used for publishing. So carry on. All right. Okay, so points to be made. In this example, all the types are defined locally. They are enclosed. Okay, so we have a type. We back up and take a look at the type. We have a complex type. That's the sequence of title, author, department, revision date, and abstract. And we declare that locally inline, and that's a pretty simple approach. Okay, and note that revision date has the built-in type XS date. Okay, so what we've got to do now is we have to start to introduce markup that's going to allow us to for number one, to identify paragraphs. Okay, because white space in XML documents is normalized in the same sense that white space in HTML documents are normalized when you render them in the browser. So no matter how many spaces or new lines or tabs that you have, it all gets turned into one space. So just white space is not enough to identify paragraphs. So what we've done here in this example 5.9 is inside of abstract we have added the paragraph element to indicate what the paragraphs are. Okay, so the first paragraph is surrounded by a paragraph element, and that's true for the second one too. Okay, and you'll notice when we get down to the bottom, we've added a details element, and for right now, it's just got plain old text. That's kind of placeholder text for it. Okay, so the document's getting a little more complex. And I want to point out a couple of other things that are a little more complex. One is that we're using one of the built-in general entity declarations for ampersand. So we can't use any unescaped ampersands, all right? And we also can't use any unescaped less than symbols, okay? So where we say less than 18 months, we have to use amper LT semicolon, and up here where we use where we have an ampersand, it has to be amper AMP semicolon. And then we've got one other place where we have a little bit different coding, and this is right at the beginning of the first of the paragraphs. We have a registered trademark symbol, and we've used what we call a character reference. So we've got amper #174 Schema, and that is a way to refer to one of the characters in the Unicode character set that is the registered trademark symbol. All right, now let's look at the changes that went on in the schema to accompany this. Okay, so we're still declaring out at a global level. We have the element procedure, okay, and we're still enclosing the type for that element. It's a complex type, it's a sequence, okay, and here it's the sequence of title, author, department, revision date, abstract. Abstract's a little different now, and we'll come back to take a look at that. And then the last thing in the sequence is details. And for right now, we're saying that the details is just a string. So what have we done to abstract? Let's go look at that. Well, we have declared a type. Again, it's a local type, so we're using it right here. And we're saying that it's a sequence of the paragraph element. Okay, the paragraph element is has type string, so that's pretty much the kind of text we were enclosing before. We're saying min occurs 1, so you have to have at least one paragraph. And max occurs unbounded. Okay, so you can have as many paragraphs in an abstract as you want. Okay, now there are a couple of thoughts about whether we should have min occurs 1 or min occurs 0 when we have something like, say, paragraph. The nice thing in saying min occurs 1 is when we're using an XML editor like Oxygen, every time you say that you want to add an abstract, it automatically inserts the first paragraph for you because it knows it has at least one. And if this is typical, if you typically don't have empty abstracts, well then saying min occurs equal to 1 because it becomes a convenient way to get the behavior that you want in the editor. Okay, so why don't we go on to the rest here? Well, we just have the close on the complex type and the element. So the only thing really different that we've done here is the declaration of the paragraph element as being the sequence that's inside of abstract one or more occurrences of the paragraph. Okay, so I'm going to open these up here. Let's close these two. And let's open up the 5.9s. 5.9 and 5.9. Okay. And again, the default on my Oxygen is when you open up a schema, it puts it in the design mode. Not really a place where I spend a lot of time. I'm typically over here in the text mode. And let's go back and look at the XML document. So let's validate this. It's validated. And let's take a look at the schema. And again, because the schema is in a tag set and there's a schema for that tag set, we can validate it. And that's valid too. Okay, so all that seems to be working fine. Let's go on and take a look at our comments. So in this example, all the types that we have can still be defined locally. In line. We're enclosing the types. We're not using a name of a type that we declared out at the global top level. And all of those things that we define using the ampersands, which are general entities for the less than in the ampersand, and a character reference for the registered trademark symbol, they have no counterpart in the schema. They're just part of the underlying wiring of standard XML. Okay, so we don't have to define any of those kinds of character features in the schema. They're built in. All right, let's go a little bit farther. So I said that the thing that was really going to be different was this mixed content. Now we're finally getting to it. Mixed content allows you to take words or phrases in a running text paragraph and to surround them with an element that further defines their meaning. Okay, so the great example that we have here is in the first of the paragraphs. We've taken the expression Larkin trademark symbol 2424 CNC router, and we know that's a piece of equipment. Okay, and in these procedures, which are procedures for maintaining equipment, we want to give, we want to be able to identify what's equipment. Well, why would we want to be able to identify that? Well, from a publishing point of view, I can think of two reasons. One is that when we're rendering a document, we want to give it special typographic treatment, okay? So you can say, oh, that's a piece of equipment. I see that. And the other is we probably would like to be able to have some kind of special index of equipment. So we might have a backup book index where we would have an index of equipment where you could see all the equipment listed, and you could see the page on which we refer to it in the text. And that's something that we would be able to do if we were publishing this with these this kind of XML content document, transforming it with XSLT, and then creating a high quality print document with XSLFO, which we're going to do later in the course. So this surrounding of the running text, some part of the running text, with one of these modifying elements, this is what creates mixed content. As soon as you have one of those, now you can have all kinds of them, and they can occur anywhere within the running text of, say, in this case, the paragraph element. All right. Okay, and then let's look in the second paragraph. We've decided to take the words Teflon spray and to enclose those in a supply element. And again, two reasons why we might want to do that. One is that when we're rendering this, we may want to give special typographic treatment to the supplies so you can find them easily when you're looking through the procedure. And then the other thing is, again, we might want to use this to build some kind of specialized index to the supplies and where they're used. Okay. All right. So we've added mixed content to the paragraphs. How does that look when you define it in the schema? Well, we're going to see this. So what we've decided that we're going to do is that this approach is going to be, I'm sorry, ran away there. This is going to be kind of a general approach. It's going to turn out that we're going to reuse the paragraph type in another part of the schema again. So as soon as we have a second use for some kind of a type declaration, it makes sense for us to declare that type out at the global level and give it a name. So here, instead of describing the particulars of a paragraph type in line locally, what we're going to do is that we've decided we're going to have a type called paragraph type, which is going to have to be defined out at the global level. And we say min occurs 1, max occurs unbounded. So far we haven't changed it. All right, but let's go and look what the rules are for a paragraph type. So here's paragraph type. It's a complex type, okay, and it has two features. One is it has this mixed equal true. Okay, mixed equal true says we're going to have a mixture of running text in this plus sub-elements. Okay, so then how do you define the sub-elements? Well, here's how you do it. You make it a choice. Okay, so a choice is kind of like a sequence, but a choice says I'm going to choose one from the list. Okay, so we're saying that we've got this running text, and in between the running text, we're going to have choices of equipment or supply. Okay, and we're going to say that the number of times that we get to choose is from 0 to unbounded. So this says the following thing. within a paragraph, okay, in any given time, we can either have plain old running text or one of the sub-elements that is in my choice. And this choice happens over and over again. So I could have just running text, no sub-elements at all. I could have just running text and equipment. I could have just running text and a supply. I could have just running text and 3 equipments and 2 supplies in any order. Okay, so this is very flexible. So this is how we declare mixed content. So what kind of content can be in these sub-elements? Well, you just have to look at how they're defined. So in this case, for equipment and supply, we just say they're basically strings. So they can only have plain old running text in them. Now, it is possible for us to have mixed content elements that can be mixed content elements themselves. And we'll be exploring that a little bit later. Okay, so this is 5.10. As long as we're here, let's see all that work. Okay, so close our 5.9s and open our 5.10s. I think I can open these at the same time if I highlight them both. Let's try and do that. Highlight them both and open them. Oh, isn't that nice? All right. I like that. So here's our procedure document, and as you can see, we've got a mixed content sub-element up here in the first of the paragraphs, equipment. We have a mixed content element supply down here. Okay. Let's validate it. It's valid. Okay. Let's go over and take a look at the schema. And again, what's changed since the last time we looked at it? Well, we have this paragraph type, okay? And it's the classic mixed content design. Mixed equal true on the parent, okay? And then a choice inside that happens from 0 to unbounded times that shows you what the sub elements are in the mixed content. Now, we haven't really pushed this. I'm going to make some changes here that are not, I'm going to call some things equipment that are not really equipment, and some things supply that are not really supply. But again, if we validate this, we've just got one equipment sub-element and one supply. What if we had some kind of combination of them, okay? So I'm going to show you a trick. I don't know if we've already done this in one of the lectures or tutorials, but you can highlight any text. All right. So no further lubrication. Let's assume this is a piece of equipment. So we're going to highlight it. And we're going to press, I'm on the Mac, so I'm going to press Command E. If you are on Windows, you would press Control E. And this is going to show you the elements that are legal for you to enclose that text in. So let's see, I can either enclose it in equipment or supply, so I'll put a supply there and say OK. And now I've got a supply, so I've got equipment and a supply. And then let's take calendar time. Okay, and again, I'll Command E it. And let's make that equipment. Okay. And then let's take the word months and say that that's a supply. Okay. And I'm going to come up and check on the validation here. And you can see that that is just what we want. We can have any combination of however many we want of those modifying sub-elements in any order. So that's the classic mixed content model. Okay? So I'm going to close that and not save it because I don't want to change my files. All right, and we'll be back here to use that in a minute. And let's go look at the comments on this one. So a paragraph type that we introduced is defined at the global level, okay, which means that it is just inside the root element of the schema. The definition for paragraph type includes the attribute mixed equal true to allow mixed content. Okay, that's what says, oh, we're going to have running text in between the sub-elements, and the excess choice element is used to make the modifying elements optional within the running text of the paragraph element. And I just want to point out that the choice, let's go back and take a look at that choice. The choices are typically just happen one time. Okay, it's only because we put 0 to unbounded on the choice itself that this is a choice that happens over and over again within the paragraph. And that's part of this special design for mixed content. We're going to see choices in a little bit where we only expect the choice to happen one time, in which case we're not going to have this min occurs, max occurs. We're just going to take the default, min occurs equals 1, max occurs equals 1, choice happens one time. Not this case, this special design for mixed content, the choice happens repeatedly. Okay? All right, let's go and look at our next step. So in 5.11, we add details to the procedure. Okay, so the abstract was pretty well taken care of with all of the markup that we had in it. But let's go down and look at the details. So details had been just plain old text. Well, now we see it's got a structure that's pretty interesting. So within details, we have frequency for the procedure, every 9 to 18 months, duration, 1 hour, and then we have a steps element, which includes one or more instances of step. Okay, and then step, interestingly, has an attribute called name. Okay, and I really like the using these kinds of attributes for naming things because I think they read well. Okay, where you say step name equal whatever. I think that reads particularly well. So that's part of my design style. And then, interestingly, inside of steps we have one or more paragraphs. So what we're doing here is this is pretty typical of these publishing-oriented documents. You'll see that, especially when it comes to the definitions of the elements that are used for running text, you'll see them occur in more than one context within the document. So the paragraph can occur within the abstract or within a step, and the only thing that we need to be sure is that if we're going to do that, that the rules for paragraphs are going to be the same in both places. And of course, paragraphs are mixed content, and they can have, last time we saw them, they could have an equipment sub-element or a supply sub-element. Okay? And of course, we can do the same thing here. So within step 2, you can see that we have a supply, Teflon spray. Okay? So let's go one more down. And interestingly, if you look at the second paragraph on the step called Clean Machine First, it has a warning sub-element. So we've decided that there's going to be another kind of sub-element allowed in paragraphs, warning. And I just want to point out that if we allow it in this context, well then we are allowing it in the abstract context as well. Okay? So let's go take a look at our files and prove to ourselves that they were confined. So, excuse me, what was that? That's 5.11. So let's go open up the 5.11 files. And we'll use our trick to open them both up at the same time. Very nice. Okay. So let's just go look at this. So you can see that the changes that we have are in these the declarations that relate to details. Okay. And we have a kind of a sophisticated design for details, which has a number of sub-elements, but somewhere within the structure we break back into having paragraphs, just like the paragraphs we had in abstract. So let's give this a check it to be valid. So it validates OK. And then let's just look at the declarations. Now, the paragraph type hasn't changed significantly. So first of all, let's look at the declaration for procedure. Okay, so we're still pointing out the paragraph type. Okay, so that's the same code. And details had been just a plain old string. Now it has its own type. Now, could we have had a local type there and closed it? Yeah, but in my style, I like to not have too many things inside of things. It just gets a little bit hard to read. So did I have to make details type a global type? No, I didn't. But I kind of like doing that, right? So what's the definition for paragraph type? Has it changed? Yeah, I'm going to allow a warning sub-element now. Okay, and I have to emphasize, if we're going to allow that in one context of where we're using paragraph type, we have to allow it in all contexts. So as soon as we add this, we could go into the abstract and have a warning in the abstract as well. Okay, so because they're sharing schema definitions. And then in the details type, let's see what we have. Well, we have a sequence of what? Frequency, duration. We have the one occurrence of the element steps, and then we have declared a complex type inside of there. It's a local definition. We declared it in line. We have a sequence of step between 1 to unbounded. So multiple occurrences of step, and And again, could we have enclosed that type? Yeah, we could have, but it gets a little bit hard to read. Okay, so my style says let's use a globally defined type, step type. So let's go down to step type. And it's a complex type because it's a sequence. The only thing that's a simple type is just a plain old text element without an attribute. So not a whole lot of things can be simple types. So sequences, choices, even plain old text with an attribute, they're all complex types. Okay, so the sequence is a sequence of paragraph, 1 to unbounded times, and then we're adding an attribute called name, and it has the type XS string. Okay, so let's validate this schema. Yeah, that works fine. And again, we'll go back and validate the document just because it's fun. And that's valid. That's valid too. Okay, let's go back and take a look at the comments on this one. So adding details. So the global definition of paragraph type is reused in the definition of step type. That's really the big thing. Okay, and again, once you begin to share these type definitions, you have to be prepared for the rules to be the same every place you use them. If not, then you don't want to be sharing a type. Okay, a couple more points to be made. So that's all the points to be made about those documents. There are built-in types that we've talked about so far. So far we've talked about string and date. There are others. Okay. So there are a number of string-based types. String, normalized string, token, name, NC name, and language. String is the one that we're going to be using the most. Okay. Numeric types, though. So I'm not sure if we've used integer before, but of course, integer is for whole numbers. Decimal is for numbers that have a fixed number of decimal digits, most typically dollars and cents. And float and double are ways to declare floating point numbers. And I don't really think we have, but we certainly don't have a lot of applications for them in publishing. And for the most part, we're going to do well in non-scientific documents to be using decimal and integer. Of course, if you had scientific test data, you might be using float or double. And double definitely over float because floats are too rounded. Okay, and there are a bunch of date and time types. So there's date, date time, G year month, G month day, G day, duration. So all kinds of opportunities for date related types. There are legacy types that are interesting. Okay. I'm going to tell you about the two that I find are the most interesting are ID and ID ref. The other ones we can probably get away without really having to think about. You will note that it's possible for an attribute in an XML document to serve as an identifier. Okay, so how do you say that the attribute is an identifier? Well, we give it the type ID. Okay. As soon as we do that, okay, that tells the XML parser that this has to be unique within the document. Not among IDs of that element type, but among all the IDs in the document altogether. Okay, so it's like a global identifier space for the document. Okay, this works very much akin to the ID type in HTML. So it gives us the opportunity to create an identifier for the element that allows other parts of the document to point to it. Okay, so then how could you have another part of the document point to it? Well, you'd have another attribute in another part of the document, and you'd say that that's an ID ref. Okay, you'd give it that type. So what does that say? Well, that says that this value has to point to an ID value. So let's say we have an element, and we give it it has an attribute called ID, the ID, and has type ID, and we give it the value x1234. And then we have another attribute that we say is an ID ref. It has to take on the value that points at another ID. So if that's x1234, it would be x1234. So IDs and ID refs are described pretty well in the Harold and Means book. So to the extent that you want to use those kinds of structures, Harold and Means is, I think, the place to go to get good examples for that. More legacy types, Boolean. This is a type that I use reasonably frequently because I want things to be either true or false. The proper values are lowercase true and lowercase false. Hex binary, not something I use a lot. Any URI, not really something I use so much. But the Boolean, yes. So that's it. So to come back and kind of point out the highlights from the lecture, the big difference in a schema for a publishing application is this mixed content. And this is really unique to publishing, that we have these runs of text in which certain words or phrases are surrounded by sub-elements that modify them. They give them a special meaning. And we have a fixed way that we define it. And if we back up a second here and just look at the hallmarks of this kind of definition. It's right here in the declarations that we have for paragraph type. The parent element is always going to have mixed equals true. Okay, then we're always going to have a choice inside. The choice is going to occur 0 to unbounded times, okay, which is a special use of choice, especially for mixed content elements. And then each of the sub-elements is going to be declared inside the choice. And if the sub-elements can only have text in them, then they're going to be defined as XS string. If it turns out that they can be mixed content themselves, well, they're going to have a custom definition. Okay, so if we wanted equipment, for instance, to be a mixed content element in its own right, instead of saying that equipment had the type XS string, I would declare another global type. So I would call it equipment type. Okay, and then I would have pretty much a similar construct for that looks like this. So it's definitely possible to have mixed content elements within mixed content elements within mixed content elements, and when we get to XSLT, we'll have a little bit of experience with that. But again, we declare the sub-elements as whatever they are. And in the version we have right now, they're all just plain old XML string text. All right, that's it. There's a tutorial and an assignment to give you the opportunity to apply these skills, which I hope you're going to enjoy. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.